Did you really think someone like you would be worth our time? What a joke. Your company is bottom tier trash.
Edward, the sales director from our client company, burst out laughing as he watched me stand there in shock.
Our representative said it was an important meeting, but I didn't expect it to be with a construction company. Construction companies are just full of uneducated nobodies.
Edward clearly had no idea how critical this deal was. This was a negotiation that was meant to be beneficial for both sides. And yet, Edward had completely ruined it in an instant.
To top it off, I never expected such a shabby-looking employee to show up. You dare to demand that I listen to you? Know your place. We're Anderson Enterprises.
Sure, Anderson Enterprises was a big corporation. They operated across a wide range of industries and had impressive annual revenue. But that didn't give them a free pass to disrespect their business partners. Edward was about to regret underestimating us just because we're a construction company. Well, that's unfortunate. In that case, the $655 million contract is off the table. I'm Eric Allen, 33 years old. I work at Nelson Construction. This company is a major general contractor, often referred to as a primary contractor. Even though I work for such a reputable company, my personal background isn't exactly something to be proud of. That's why I felt fortunate to have landed a position at this company. Right now, I'm in the middle of negotiating a major deal. If this deal goes through, it'll be a huge win for the company. And for me, it would mean a significant boost to my career. Even my company president, Mark Baker, had high expectations for me.
This negotiation is in good hands with you. It's a tough one, but I'm counting on you.
Thank you, Mark. I'll give it my best. That's why I've been fully committed to making this deal happen. After finishing up a site inspection, I headed to Anderson Enterprises for the meeting. The negotiation I just mentioned is with them. Anderson Enterprises deals in consumer goods, finance, and real estate, among other things. Originally, several companies had bid for this contract, including Parker Trading and Davidson Group. We chose Anderson Enterprises as our partner because of the scale of their operations. This deal was supposed to bring substantial benefits to both companies. Since I was coming straight from the site, I showed up in my work clothes. This wasn't unusual for me. The Anderson Enterprises representatives had always been accommodating and told me not to worry about my attire, considering I often had to shuttle between the office and job sites. Their flexibility made things much easier for me. The negotiation had reached its final stage. If they were satisfied today, we could sign the contract right away. When I arrived at their building, I informed the receptionist that I was here for a meeting. That's when the receptionist revealed an unexpected detail.
I'm sorry, but the person in charge is out sick today. The sales director, Edward, will be filling in.
I see. Thank you for letting me know. A sudden sickness is common. It's understandable that someone might need to miss an important meeting. As long as someone was stepping in, I had no complaints. If the sales director himself was taking over, I figured the meeting would go smoothly. I made my way to the designated meeting room. After knocking, I stepped inside. A man who appeared to be in his 50s, dressed in a suit, was already seated. Nice to meet you. I'm Eric from Nelson Construction. Thank you for your time today.
Yeah, sure.
So, this was Edward, the sales director stepping in for the meeting. Although it was our first time meeting, I greeted him politely, hoping for a productive conversation. He only responded curtly, without so much as a smile. To make matters worse, he kept fiddling with his phone. Even for a director, that level of rudeness felt excessive. I decided not to comment on it. After all, I wasn't in a position to criticize someone in his position. I told myself he must be dealing with something urgent and tried not to let it bother me. Well then, let's get started with the negotiation. Edward didn't respond, but I couldn't let that stop me. I decided to pick up where we had left off in the negotiation so far, about the construction schedule. I began explaining the internal decisions we had made regarding the content we had discussed during the previous meeting. However, Edward still refused to listen. He kept staring at his phone, showing no interest whatsoever. He would occasionally widen his eyes at whatever he was reading or let out an annoyed sigh. At one point, a receptionist brought him a cup of coffee, but he continued fiddling with his phone, ignoring her completely. With no responses or acknowledgments from him, I went ahead and explained the entire proposal from start to finish. Then, I asked for his confirmation. Does everything sound good so far?
What?
I'm asking if the terms of the proposal are acceptable. But his expression was one of irritation. He hadn't responded the entire time I was explaining. Had he really not listened to anything at all? I'd initially felt reassured, knowing that someone with the title of sales director was handling the meeting. But I didn't expect that trust to be so completely betrayed. I kept a polite smile on my face as I spoke. Well, if anything is unclear, I'd be happy to go over it again. But Edward's reply was cold and dismissive.
Thanks for your explanation. You can leave now.
What?
I said get out.
I was stunned by his sudden dismissal, my eyes widening in disbelief. What do you mean?
Why would we bother negotiating with a grimy company like yours?
But this deal has been in progress for several months now. This deal was practically at the point where all that was left was to sign the contract. Edward suddenly burst into laughter.
So what? The only reason things got this far is because the previous rep was clueless.
That's not true.
Oh, it totally is. Construction companies are just filled with brainless people. Yet somehow you guys thought you could handle a negotiation.
He continued mocking us, his insults piling up. I was left speechless as I listened to a string of taunts unbefitting of someone in his position. As I mentioned earlier, finalizing this deal would result in significant mutual benefits.
Shut up.
Edward suddenly raised his voice. Then, to my shock, he knocked over his coffee cup, spilling the contents all over the contract. A dark stain quickly spread across the document. Oh no.
Did you really think a bottom-tier company like yours was worth our time?
Edward laughed hysterically as I stared at him in silence. I stood there, eyes wide open, unable to say a word.
Our rep called this an important negotiation, but I never expected it to be with a construction company. Construction firms are just full of uneducated nobodies.
He clearly didn't understand how important this deal was. This was a crucial negotiation for both sides. That's why we had spent months carefully preparing for it. Our company had been counting on this deal. And yet, Edward had ruined it in mere moments. As I remained speechless, he continued speaking.
And on top of that, I didn't expect such a scruffy-looking employee to show up. You're not even worth listening to. Know your place. This is Anderson Enterprises.
It was true. Anderson Enterprises was a major corporation. They operated across various industries and had impressive annual revenue. But that didn't give them a free pass to mock their business partners. And Edward would soon regret underestimating us simply because we're a construction company. I felt my heart grow cold. That's unfortunate. In that case, the $655 million contract is off the table. There was no way I could sign a deal with a company that behaved like this. I was grateful to have learned their true nature before signing anything irreversible. With that in mind, I spoke with resolve. Upon hearing my words, Edward's face went pale.
Wait, $655 million?
Yes, that's correct. Edward's face twisted in shock when he heard the amount I mentioned. He hastily reached for the documents to verify it. However, the papers were soaked with coffee, making it difficult to find what he was looking for. He stared intently at the documents, frantically searching for the amount. After about a minute of searching, he finally managed to make out the $655 million figure.
What the hell is this? Are you seriously telling me a construction company's contract is worth $655 million?
This is a major high-rise condominium construction project. Doesn't it make sense for it to involve that kind of money?
A high-rise construction projects? I wasn't informed about that.
You should have been briefed by your team. Of course, all of this is detailed in the contract as well, though the contract was now ruined by the spilled coffee. I had been working with their previous representative for months, and he was someone I trusted. Knowing him, I was certain he had thoroughly explained the projects to Edward before asking him to take over due to his illness. But it seemed Edward hadn't been paying attention. It was entirely possible that, as before, he had been distracted by his phone and ignored everything. This project should have been a key undertaking for Anderson Enterprises. I imagine you've already secured the land for it. If this contract gets scrapped now, can you even fathom the losses your company will incur?
I mean,
Even if he was a lousy manager, he was still a director. He must have understood the massive impact that canceling a $655 million contract would have on the company's finances. I pressed further as he stumbled over his words. You're the sales director, aren't you? How could you not be aware of such a large-scale deal within your department?
well, I can't possibly keep track of every single negotiation my junior coworkers handle.
Edward protested as if it were the most reasonable thing in the world. But it was anything but. Sure, it might be understandable for smaller deals. But this was a negotiation that could affect the company's entire bottom line. If things went south, the resulting losses would be immeasurable. How could a director be unaware of such an important deal? Most likely, Edward was the type who always delegated his responsibilities to his juniors and took it easy. It wouldn't be surprising if he had dumped the Nelson construction deal on someone else from the start.
Damn it. Wait. There's no way you can unilaterally cancel this deal. This must be important for Nelson Construction too, isn't it? Am I wrong?
He sounded triumphant, as if he had figured something out. Of course, I wasn't bluffing when I said I'd void the contract. I calmly explained the truth. This matter has been entrusted to me. If I determine that your company is not a suitable partner, I have the authority to cancel the contract. Besides, there are plenty of companies interested in this deal. We can find a new partner even now.
That's not fair.
It only shows how valuable this contract really was. Land development and high-rise construction projects bring in massive revenue, making them highly attractive to large corporations. That's why we had multiple companies vying for this deal in the first place. We had chosen Anderson Enterprises because of their scale and reputation. So even if we cut ties with Anderson Enterprises, there's no issue. We'll simply reach out and secure a new partner.
Damn it. You're really going to do this to us?
Edward groaned in frustration. His arrogance in underestimating us because we were a construction company was now costing him dearly. He seemed to be realizing the gravity of his mistake.
Wait. Isn't there anything you want?
Something I want.
Money. Special deals. Whatever you need. I can make it happen. It's a win-win, right? So let's renegotiate the contract.
It seemed he was now trying to bribe me. He must have realized he couldn't afford to lose this contract. But there was no way I'd stoop to such underhanded dealings. It was clear he was willing to resort to anything. Naturally, I shook my head. No, I have no intention of agreeing to that. There's no guarantee your offer is legitimate or fair.
Damn it. I'm offering to do whatever you want.
Do you really think I'd fall for that? This deal is practically sealed already, and I have no reason to sabotage it myself. Watching Edward stubbornly cling on, I let out a sigh. Well, that concludes our meeting. I won't be coming back to your company. Please inform the appropriate person. Goodbye.
Wait, we're not finished yet.
Edward tried to stop me, but I ignored him and walked out of the meeting room. Before he could catch up, I left the building. After that, I returned to my office and reported everything to Mark, the president of Nelson Construction. I'm sorry, Mark. The deal with Anderson Enterprises has fallen through.
What happened?
Mark was surprised, but listened calmly to my explanation. I believed this was the right thing to do. Even so, it was a fact that months of negotiations had been wasted. I needed to take responsibility for that. I apologized to him. My deepest apologies, Mark.
It's all right. If it was your decision, I trust it. Continuing with that negotiation might have led to a worse outcome.
He gave me a reassuring smile. It seemed he understood why I decided to cancel the contract. Seeing his gentle expression, I felt a sense of relief.
Still, I didn't expect Edward to be such a tyrant.
Yes, it was my first time meeting him, and he left quite an impression.
I've never seen Edward handle negotiations before, and few people even mention him.
Mark seemed deep in thought. Based on Edward's attitude during the meeting, it was clear he wasn't proactive in his work. Do you think Edward isn't very committed to his job?
That might be the case. I can't believe he was unaware of the high-rise projects. It wouldn't surprise me if he's been dumping his responsibilities onto his subordinates and reaping the rewards.
Mark sighed as he speculated about Edward's true nature.
To think that months of careful negotiations were destroyed in an instant by a lazy director.
Mark's expression was bitter as he spoke.
That being said, I respect your decision. When considering the time and profit involved in the construction, a few months is nothing. What's more problematic is encountering issues after things have progressed too far.
Thank you.
I'm glad I trusted you with this. Your work ethic and judgment are impeccable. I see your decision as a brave one.
Mark narrowed his eyes and looked at me kindly. His praise made me feel a bit self-conscious. Even though I was trusted to lead such negotiations, I was actually a high school graduate. I grew up in a single-parent household. My grades were excellent, but our financial situation was tough. Even with scholarships, attending college wasn't an option. So I decided to enter the workforce right after high school. That's how I began working at a construction company. Subcontractor construction jobs meant long hours and hard work. But with no formal education, the only thing I could do was build my skills. I gained hands-on experience at job sites, earned certifications, and steadily improved my abilities. Eventually, I was hired by Nelson Construction. Since Nelson Construction is a major company, most of the employees are college graduates. I stood out as one of the few high school graduates. However, my colleagues respected me for my high level of expertise. Mark had entrusted me with a major high-rise project without regard to my academic background. That trust was the result of my hard work I had put in since graduating high school to gain skills and knowledge that rivaled any college graduate. It was an honor to have my efforts recognized like this. Thank you so much, Mark.
If anything, we should be the ones thanking you. Your contributions to this company have been immeasurable. I trust you completely. That's why I chose you as the lead for this negotiation.
Mark smiled warmly. Seeing his smile, I felt a little embarrassed again.
Even though the contract was nullified, can I still count on you to handle things from here?
Of course. I'll do everything I can.
That's good. I'm counting on you.
Understood. There are plenty of companies where being a high school graduate alone can limit your chances of success. But Mark had recognized the skills I had worked so hard to acquire since joining the workforce. He had entrusted me with this important negotiation. I could have easily ended up stuck in a career defined by the label of a high school graduate. Thinking about that, I knew I had to repay this trust. I couldn't let the deal's cancellation hold me back. After that, I began searching for a new company to collaborate on the high-rise projects. Nelson Construction eventually entered into a contract with Parker Trading. When the Parker Trading representative heard that the deal with Anderson Enterprises had been canceled, they were visibly surprised. However, that fact didn't stir any distrust from Parker Trading. Nelson Construction had built a solid foundation of trust over the years. In fact, they even considered it fortunate that the deal with Anderson Enterprises had fallen through. And so, Nelson Construction proceeded with the high-rise project in partnership with Parker Trading. It was a painstaking process, but we spent several months carefully discussing the terms, construction methods, and mutual expectations. When it came to deciding the location for the high-rise, fortune struck once again. Anderson Enterprises had released the land they had secured for the projects. They likely had no choice but to sell it to offset the losses caused by the canceled deal. Parker Trading purchased the land. Thanks to that, we secured a prime location for the construction. The contract was signed without any issues, and the large-scale construction plan, set to span nearly 8 years, was officially underway. We delegated tasks to subcontractors, placed orders for building materials, and moved forward with construction at full speed. As the project's site manager, I was responsible for overseeing operations on site. The scale of this high-rise project was exhilarating. It would take time, but one day, this area would be lined with towering buildings. That thought alone made me feel an overwhelming sense of pride as someone working in construction. About 6 months later, the first high-rise began to take shape. Parker Trading was handling the sales of the units. Thanks to the excellent location, many of the units had already been sold. Hearing that from the representatives filled me with pride. As I stood admiring the emerging high-rise, someone approached.
Eric.
Mark. Mark had come to check in on me at the site. Seeing him immediately made me stand a little straighter. At the same time, I felt reassured knowing he was looking out for us.
How's everything going?
Things are running smoothly. Partnering with Parker Trading was definitely the right call.
Good. All that time spent planning has paid off.
Mark smiled as he listened to my report. His smile was contagious, and I couldn't help but smile back. When I decided to void the contract, I worried I had acted rashly. But now I'm sure I made the right choice.
I've always trusted your decisions, Eric.
Thank you, Mark. Hearing his words made me blush a little, which made Mark chuckle softly.
Considering how things would have gone if Edward had handled this project, there's no guarantee it would have gone this well.
His blunt honesty made me laugh awkwardly. Of course, I'd never say it out loud in front of Edward, but he wasn't wrong. Edward, who has no understanding of the work, suddenly showing up at the site and barking orders left and right. I could easily picture that scene playing out in my mind. There's nothing more infuriating than being thrown into chaos by a boss who doesn't know the site, but still gives orders left and right. Changing partners had indeed been the right choice. Thinking that gave me a sense of relief. One evening, I was back at the construction site. I had a meeting scheduled with Mark, so we had agreed to meet up after dinner. As construction progressed, things kept changing, so site managers had to adapt on the fly. That's why I returned to the site after finishing dinner. Some might groan at the thought of working overtime, but for this high-rise projects, I found the motivation to keep going. More than anything, seeing Mark's dedication made me want to push myself even harder. So, I returned to the site, but as I arrived, I heard an unusual noise. What? Footsteps. The day's work had long since ended. Everyone should have gone home to rest and prepare for tomorrow. I cautiously tried to pinpoint where the sound was coming from. As I walked around, scanning the area, I spotted a shadowy figure. The dim lighting made it hard to see clearly, but there was Edward. I instantly recognized his face, burned into my memory after that humiliating negotiation. Edward. I was so shocked that I let out a startled cry. I quickly closed my mouth, but it was too late. Edward had noticed that I was secretly observing him. He recognized me and widened his eyes in alarm.
You? What are you doing here?
The construction site was completely silent, and he must have assumed no one was around. That's why he had snuck in. Now that he'd been caught, I couldn't back down as the site manager. Even if he was a director from another company, I had to maintain a firm stance. You're the one who's not supposed to be here. This site is off limits to unauthorized personnel. Why are you on our construction site?
Shut up.
Call it what you want, but do you realize that what you're doing is illegal? This was clearly trespassing, both humanly and legally unacceptable. I didn't know his intentions, but it was obvious they weren't good. Don't tell me you were planning to sabotage the construction. When I called him out, Edward fell silent, as if I'd hit the nail on the head. If he did intend to interfere, it would throw off the construction schedule and the material orders. Many companies involved would suffer as a result, and it was a serious offense. But perhaps upset by being confronted, Edward began shouting.
So what if I was? It's your fault the contract went to someone else, and we're in deep trouble because of you.
That's because you failed to understand the terms of the deal, isn't it?
You didn't explain it properly. That's on you.
Edward was determined to pin the blame on me, but the term high-rise had come up countless times in my explanations. It was absurd for a director to be unaware of such a large-scale projects. I couldn't accept being blamed for something like this.
Because of you, I got demoted and told to go find a new contract. I had it easy doing my job.
Apparently, Edward had been punished for losing the high-rise project due to his negligence. Given the losses he caused, that was only natural. His demotion likely came as a relief to his colleagues.
Being a director was so easy. Just betting on horse races on my phone. And you ruined it.
In that moment, a question I'd had for months was finally answered. So that's what Edward had been doing during our meeting, watching horse races. I was dumbfounded by how ridiculous it was. Canceling the contract with Anderson Enterprises had definitely been the right decision.
Don't think you'll get away with this.
Edward. Just as I was wondering what to do, an unexpected person appeared.
What's going on here?
Oh, you're...
The one who interrupted our argument was Mark. In the heat of the moment, I had completely forgotten about our scheduled meeting.
Eric, who is this?
This is Edward from Anderson Enterprises. He's their former sales director.
Oh, the one who insulted our company during negotiations, I presume.
Edward hadn't expected Mark to show up and was visibly shaking. As soon as Mark arrived, I felt the tension in my body ease. With Mark here, Edward wouldn't be able to escape.
What exactly are you doing trespassing at our construction site?
Well,
This is a clear case of trespassing.
Edward fumbled, unable to form a coherent response. He might have been bold with me, but he couldn't talk his way out with another company's president. All he could do was stammer uselessly.
Breaking into a construction site at night and attempting sabotage is absolutely unacceptable. What would you do if this had affected our progress?
I didn't mean.
Your actions are indefensible. Maybe you intended to steal documents or equipment, but that won't happen. I'll be reporting this incident to your company's president.
Even in the dim light, it was clear that Edward's face had turned pale.
Please, anything but that.
Do you really think you're in any position to make demands?
Mark glared at Edward. Under his intense gaze, Edward shrank back completely.
It may be that you're bitter about losing the deal, but the reason you lost the high-rise project to another company is because you failed to understand it, right? The deal with Anderson Enterprises was practically finalized. It's all your own fault.
All that was left was to sign the contract to close the deal. Yet, Edward was the one who ruined it by not listening and even spilling coffee on the documents. Perhaps he couldn't let it go, but sabotaging the construction out of spite was nothing but a childish act of revenge.
Of course, we won't just report this to your company. We'll also be filing charges against you for trespassing. The security cameras likely caught footage of your intrusion.
Charges? You mean the police are coming?
That's correct. This is clearly a criminal offense.
Edward probably thought he could get away with it because he was acting on impulse. If his actions were proven, he would be arrested and have a criminal record. Realizing that, Edward started to panic.
This is ridiculous. None of this would have happened if you hadn't taken the deal to another company. I'm not going to accept all the blame for this.
He stomped his feet and protested. But no amount of immature outbursts could excuse what he had done. As Edward struggled desperately, I finally let out everything I'd been holding back. Construction takes a long time and involves countless people. It's a process carried out meticulously to ensure everything runs smoothly.
What's your point?
Edward seemed shaken as I began to speak firmly. He probably hadn't expected me to speak out as well. But I continued, ignoring his reaction. Yet, not only did you fail to grasp any of that, but you ruined everything by acting on your own assumptions. You have any idea how many people were affected by your selfish decisions? At my pointed accusation, Edward fell silent. Maybe my words finally hit home for him. We won't be dropping the charges. Now, please leave this site immediately.
Damn it. You think you're so high and mighty.
Edward glared at us in defiance. Perhaps the thought of facing legal consequences made him unwilling to back down. But there were two of us. Even if he tried to resist, he knew he couldn't win.
You'll regret this.
With that final threat, he stormed off. The next day, Mark reported Edward's trespassing to Anderson Enterprises. The president of Anderson Enterprises issued a formal apology. Their representative also apologized for the trouble caused by the broken deal. Edward may have been problematic, but Anderson Enterprises itself was a reputable company. That's why we initially chose them as our partner. We hope to collaborate with them again in a different way someday. Meanwhile, Edward was arrested for trespassing. He was tried in court and sentenced to 1 year in prison. On top of that, he was severely reprimanded by Anderson's president and was terminated from the company. Even his wife and children abandoned him, filing for divorce and leaving their home. 1 year may not seem like a long sentence, but Edward likely never imagined that his impulsive actions would lead to jail time. After serving his sentence, he had to search for a new job. But with a criminal record and a reputation for being a tyrant, it was unlikely any company would hire him. After 8 years of construction, the high-rise project we had planned was finally complete. The development site was now lined with multiple high-rise towers. As Mark and I stood admiring the view, we spoke. It's finally finished.
Yeah.
Mark and I nodded at each other. The scenery, built through the collaboration of many construction and real estate companies, was truly a magnificent sight. When I first joined the workforce as a high school graduate, I never imagined I'd be entrusted with such a monumental project. I owed it all to Mark. Thank you so much. It's because you hired me that I'm here today.
I should be the one thanking you. Hiring you was one of the best decisions I've ever made.
If Mark hadn't hired me, I might still be working for a small subcontractor. That's why I knew I had to repay his trust as long as I stayed with this company. And so, I vowed to continue contributing to Nelson Construction, using my skills and knowledge to give my all.